We lawfully admit, friends.
We do patties, though.
Good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, July 18th. Welcome to the Moscow City Council meeting. Catherine?
Would you please join me in the pledge of the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay, next item of order will be the consent agenda.
I would move approval of the consent agenda with the exception of item A, the minutes from July 5th.
Second.
Okay. We've got a motion by Art and a second by Catherine to approve everything except item A. Is that correct?
That's right.
So we're gonna pull it.
Yep.
So we'll take a roll with that, starting with Walter.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, and you have the floor.
Okay, and relative to item A, there were some modifications and corrections made to the minutes pertaining to the mayor's comment period. And we all have copies of those, and that looks good to me, but just wanted to make a note of that.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Second.
Okay, Walter made a motion to approve, and Jim Boland second on A, on the consent agenda for the July 5th meeting. Start the roll with John.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And
Okay, and we will move on to the next item, which will be staff recognition report. Gary Reedner, do you have anything for us tonight, sir?
We have no report tonight.
No report tonight, okay. The next thing we will go on to will be item number 3, which is public comment in the mayor's response period. This is a period of time that will last for 15 minutes. Each person that wants to speak will get 3 minutes, and at the end of 3 minutes, we got a number of folks here. I'm going to cut you off so the next person can speak. But keep in mind, folks, this is a 15-minute period, just like it is for any other council meeting. So, and the other rules are, if it's something before us tonight, you cannot speak about that, or if it's something on planning and zoning or the Board of Adjustments in the future, you cannot speak about that. With that being said, whoever wants to start, please list your name and give us your address.
My name is Frank Bongiorno, 1514 East 3rd. I'm here tonight to ask, and first off, thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors, for allowing the opportunity to speak. I'm here tonight to ask that the vehicle bridge on East 3rd be taken off the grant, and if we could be put on the agenda for August 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bongiorno.
That was short.
Hello, Joanne.
Hi, I'm Joanne Manita. I live 203 South Howard, and I'm also here to discuss the car truck bridge on 3rd that is part of the Tiger Grant. I live at 203 South Howard, right off 3rd Street. And just this past week, we were told that our neighborhood has been awarded to be part of the National Register, which is a great honor for our whole neighborhood. It's kind of been undermined, though, by the knowledge of this grant proposal. Now, I know all of you who sit on City Council are there because you care about the livability, the uniqueness of Moscow, the quality of life we have. And that's why I was puzzled when I found out about the bridge being in the grant. And I thought it must be some kind of oversight because I never remember it being discussed at City Council. So we asked Linda Paul, who's our great investigator, to find out more details. And I believe she spoke to Alyssa and Jen and was told that the basis of the grant was a multimodal motor study, however that is. And so I got a copy of that, and I discovered some really serious problems. One is that 3rd Street is to be designated as a minor arterial, allowing speeds of 35 miles per hour. My note is putting an arterial through a historic or any residential district is a bad planning. Second of all, in the grant, it refers to Figure 4.3 in the MM study, and in that figure, it projects the increase of cars that are going to go by as a result of this. Here at City Hall, the increase will be from 7,500 to 8,200, which is 700 cars more a day. At Polk Street, just one block from where I live, it will increase from 5,000 to 6,300, an increase of 1,300 cars a day. And most serious of all is at the bridge, they expect 2,300 cars a day. Now, that's an area adjacent to Lena Whitmore where cars do not go down that area. And so we will now have 2,300 more cars going by Lena Whitmore. So there are serious bad consequences, and the consequences are not only for us who live in the historic district and near 3rd Street. The first one is it will increase congestion at 3rd and Main, because the cars that would ordinarily be turning off on Jackson or coming in on Washington will love that straight line and go straight up 3rd Street, and that's this increase that you see here. That will increase congestion. And you know there's already a line of cars from Maine to Pullman. Second of all...
Joanne, could you wrap it up, too? Because you're
okay.
over 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Traffic problems at Mountain View. All those cars are going to go across the bridge. And then what are they going to do? You're going to have 2,300 cars on 3rd and Mountain View. They're going to turn right, left, go across. You're trying to solve your problem on Mountain View with your turnarounds, but they're at 6th Street. And third, the decrease of housing values in the historic district. We've lived here 50 years. We keep our house up, and all the houses in our neighborhood are really beautiful and historic and to be proud of. If you put a major arterial or minor arterial there, it's going to deteriorate the value of the houses, increase noise, increase traffic, increase dust, etc. And people will lose the value of their house, and the houses will not be kept up. You'll end up with apartments, rooming houses, etc. Now, we're not asking you to take the traffic off 3rd. We've got lots of traffic there.
Joanne,
we just don't want any
up
more.
So others can speak.
Please reconsider this decision.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else want to come up? Please feel free. Please state your name and just recall so that you can use 3 minutes would be great so other folks can speak.
I've dreamt about coming up here and saying, hi, I'm Hildegard Verschugwiner, but actually, I'm Linda Paul. I live at 304 East A Street, the northeast corner of A and Jefferson. I'm here to ask you very, very humbly to place this issue on your August 1st agenda so that we can have a community discussion of this and review the wisdom of having a 3rd Street bridge in a grant that is really dedicated to something we really need, which is improvements to Mountain View. I appreciate the time that Les McDonald has taken explaining this to me, and Alicia Anderson, as well as Jen Pfiffner. They've all been extremely helpful to try and sort out what is exactly part of this grant proposal and the multimodal transportation plan. I want you to know that there is no provision in your grant proposal for the alleged traffic calming that was supposed to be part of the answer to this. Take it out right now, consider it later, but not with the efforts to improve Mountain View. Please put this on the agenda August 1st. Thank you very much.
Linda?
Good evening. We have a couple of things for you, a dead tree or two.
Nels, would you introduce yourself so everyone knows who you are?
Nels Reese, 308 South Hayes. Just in case you don't realize that means I'm on the corner of 3rd and Hayes. So I don't have a 3rd Street address. Sorry about that. So, Mr. Mayor and Council, and welcome, Gina. Gosh, a brand new face. I just want to set, you've heard what we're about tonight. I'd just like to read you a couple of quotes to put our mind in the right frame. This comes from a book called The Car in the City, 24 Steps to Save Streets and Healthy Communities. Cars are among the most useful inventions of the past century. They provide convenient door-to-door transportation on demand. They let you go when you want to go, make stops when you want to make, and ride in the company you choose. Cities are among the most useful developments of all time. They give you access to diverse talents of hundreds of thousands of people. They let you choose from a richness of economic, educational, cultural, and recreational offerings. They are, in a word, civilized. Moscow's a little bit of that civilization. The Car in the City is about both things because, and this was written by a Canadian, for North America, the increasingly imbalanced relationship between the car and the city is a crux issue. A problem that lurks unattended behind the scores of others. Painful as it is, we must face squarely the fact that unless the North Americans can rearrange the furniture of their cities, neither cars nor cities nor North American societies in general will function terribly well. Just 3 notes to go with this. Note that in 1980, the university basically closed its streets to general traffic. Interesting point. Note, Moscow has 3 really interesting mixed-use streets. Main Street, where we traditionally meet each other face-to-face, and we're doing really good on Main Street, I think. 6th Street, we meet the students and we walk back and forth on 6th. So this is another mixed-use street. It's got 10,000 cars on it, and you wouldn't want to live on it. But there's not much we're going to do about that. 3rd Street, the last street, these are the 3 essential streets where we get, as citizens, to sort of meet each other. I don't know how many of you walked from Friendship Square up to the park.
Nils, would you wrap it up, sir, so we can get others
Time
to
is
speak?
up. So think about those 3 streets. Think about 3rd as something just a little bit different. I know you've had important consultants. I'm not sure that they felt the same way that we're feeling. So I would encourage you to do everything in your power to reassess 3rd Street, to make plans for a pedestrian bicycle bridge over Paradise Creek. And I applaud you for the grant that you've put together. It looks great with a few exceptions. Thank you.
Anything else?
Mayor and Council, my name's Nancy Cheney. I live at 1333 Ponderosa Drive in Moscow. I join Nels in congratulating all of you and city staff on a very well-written application for this Tiger 8 grant. I think it's a culmination of many years of hard work by lots of people. And in general, as I think most of you know, I'm a huge supporter of the concept of complete streets, of connectivity, of smart growth development, and the walkability of our community. So I think so much of this, as clearly shown by the number of allies you have in this application, is really powerful and I think very much in keeping with Moscow's future. The exception to that is this concept of a motorized vehicular bridge across 3rd Street. The east end of 3rd Street is now functioning as a residential street. It has some very sensitive uses along the route. And so I have 3 points to make tonight, including a few suggestions. First of all, that this is a recurring topic. It's been driven by outside consultants and bureaucrats over the years, and each time it's the citizens who come forward to say, please don't do this to us. And the second point is it's not just NIMBYism. This is affecting the broader community. 3rd Street will bisect our downtown. It does bisect our downtown, and to invite more through traffic there, I think would be really injurious to the well-being of this very healthy, uncommonly vibrant downtown that we value so much. And so please don't invite more cars and trucks through that core. And it also is disruptive to the historic uses there, our sensitive uses with Lena Whitmore Elementary and Moscow High School, our community center, which includes Friendship Hall, and our senior center. So many sensitive uses along that route. My third point is that it's inconsistent with the council's objectives. You have a goal, at least it traditionally has been a goal, to extend the perceived area of downtown north of 3rd Street and to invite more traffic, as you've seen in so many cases in so many other communities around the country. To make that split even harder is going to make it more and more difficult to have an extended perception of our downtown area, to the, I think, ill effect on businesses on that north side. I also think it would reduce community connectedness. The idea that Moscow is a small, close-knit community where people do meet each other face to face. And if we become so auto-centric that we lose that connection, I think we lose that secret recipe that makes Moscow Moscow. And strangely, you've looked at roundabouts and at 6th and Mountain View, which I think is a fabulous idea. Another at Mountain View and Joseph, which I also think is a very good idea. And at the same time, you're about to create the same problems you seek to mitigate at those other sites if you were to put a motorized vehicular bridge at that location. I read the Complete Streets segment language in there. I think that sounds much better than it would be in practice. So my suggestions are to discuss this now before it's too late. August 1st, I think you'll get the locals. You probably won't have our university community members there, but I think talking about it before Tiger funding is in place, when it's too tempting and for all intents and purposes too late to change it, to prioritize bicycle pedestrian bridge at that location and put the motorized bridge last on the list of priorities, especially if you run out of money in that grant.
Could you wrap it up, Nancy, please?
I'm sorry?
Would you wrap it up, please?
I certainly will. And to demand a roundabout at that location if you're insistent on putting in a motorized vehicular bridge there. And tangential to all of this is to please put in a 4-way stop at F in Mountain View and another at 1st and Blaine near Lena Whitmore Elementary, where there are now just 2-way stops for the safety of our citizens here. Thank you for listening to my points.
Thank you, Nancy. This will be the last one, folks. We're running over 15 minutes, but
well, if Linda gets to be Hildegard somebody, I'm Johnny La Jolla. I'm Dan Carscallon, 318 South Cleveland. I live just off of 3rd Street. I just wanted to say, come in and say that there are people that are in favor of having a vehicular bridge at 3rd Street across Paradise Creek there. I think that it should have been built to start with. I don't think there's anybody in this part of the room that had anything to do with it not being built. And, I think that was short-sighted on their part to approve that subdivision without the bridge in that area. When I moved into that neighborhood, I knew that it would be an eventuality and was looking forward to it. There are problems with emergency response down there because the 1500 block of 3rd Street is on both sides of the creek. So that is a problem when a lot of our emergency responders are transient, I guess is a good word for it, with our student residents that are really only here for a few years. And when you go to 1500 something 3rd Street and you can't get there from Mountain View and you got to loop around, it does slow things down. I know when we took parking off of 6th Street here a couple years ago, there were a lot of people, that wanted to see some pressure off of that street. They had ideas about making it one way so that they could alleviate some of their traffic problems. I think that it would take pressure off of 6th and B and D Street. I also think there are opportunities for traffic calming in that area, like we're doing now on D Street at the junior high. And really, I don't know that we'll see, there are projections, but I don't know that we'll see a lot of difference from here clear to Hayes because everybody seems to go to Hayes anyway and turn left or right. So That's all I have for you. Just wanted to show that there are people that are in favor of it, and now I got to try and find my way home, not use 3rd Street, because it's still getting work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Well, then it's going to end this period, but I will say a couple of things here, folks. Thank you for all coming. And there was a number of people that did not get a chance to talk in front of us. And so what I would encourage, and I agree with Nancy Cheney, it'd be premature to have a meeting on August the 1st with this. But what I would encourage, for those that didn't get a chance to talk, please come back on August the 1st, and you can give us your point of view as well. We've heard some people multiple times. We'd like to hear from others as well. So there'll be another comment period on August the 1st. Please come on in and tell us your views, and we appreciate it. We don't know, folks, what will happen with this grant. I don't know. We put in for a lot of money for that. Who knows whether we'll get anything for it? We don't know yet. And it would be premature to be making decisions what we would or would not do. So with that, and we'll know probably within a couple of months, but before we start planning what we'll do with it, we don't even know if we'll have anything to do with what we want to do or need to do. So with that, I want to just thank you all for coming and being with us and sharing your thoughts, and I look forward to seeing those that didn't get to speak come back on August 1st, and thank you so very, very much. And of course, naturally, you can send us emails or write to us if you wish. So, thank you, and with that, we'll move on to the next item, which is item number 4, Citizens Commission Report on Human Rights Commission. That will be Captain Paul is somewhere out there. Hello. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
I call him Captain Paul K because his long name is so long.
Well, I'm here tonight to introduce Ken Fonts. He's with the Human Rights Commission, and the police department partners with them regularly. Ken's been with the commission for 11 years, and he's chaired the commission for the past 10 years. And tonight he's going to give a presentation over the past year of what we've done with the city. Ken?
Thank you, Ken, and welcome.
Okay, so do we have anything up there?
You got a presentation going, so
yeah, there we go. Thank you. So my name is Ken Fonts. I'm the chair of the Moscow Human Rights Commission. So thank you, Mayor Lambert, City Council, for having me here tonight to do our yearly annual report. And we're starting to lose a few people, but that's okay. And so I'm just going to go over fairly quickly what we've done over the last year since our last report and some things that we're planning on in the near future. And so I'll just start at the beginning of the year, last year, because our report was about this time last year. And so we did a social justice forum on lessons from Ferguson. The conversation continues. This was a follow-up from our earlier event that I had reported on last time, Lessons from Ferguson, where we had a public forum and talking about the issue, and we had several speakers, including former Police Chief Duke. This one was a follow-up because quite a few people wanted more. They wanted to do it again and have more time to talk and discuss things. And so we did that one again. Sadly, we had a packed house on the first one, and everybody wanted a second one, and so we held the second one, and it was much smaller. And so I'm not quite sure what was going on with that one. We were hoping for a packed house again. We participated in Palouse Pride last year in the march and with a booth as part of this and helping out with that, and we do that every year. In the fall, we had 2 social justice forums. One in September and one in November. The first one, Breaking Barriers Together, Access and Inclusion, was about disability awareness, and we partnered with Gritman Medical Center, the Disability Action Center, and others to put this one on at Gritman, and it was a great turnout. And what spurred this one was it was brought to our attention on several occasions about incidents around Moscow of people being very abrupt and impatient with people with disabilities, and shoving people off of sidewalks who were sight impaired, things of this nature, a whole bunch of different little events. And so we decided to do this event to bring more awareness to issues in Moscow for people with disabilities. And so it was a really good turnout. We did well on that one. The next one, Race and Education, in November. This one we partnered with Dr. Kristen Haltiner's sociology class, and the actually sociology students put on the entire forum. They planned it, they designed it, they got the speakers and put it all on for us, and so we just kind of guided them a little bit. And they did a really good job, and so we liked that one because we were bringing in the university, we're bringing in college students to do more of these types of things, because we like partnering when we can. Then we also helped support this event in September, which was partnering with the University of Idaho again, making change, film forum, bootstrapping social change from Idaho to Africa. They brought in a couple speakers that were African social justice, social rights, and human rights activists, and so the film was about that. Two of the people in the film came to Moscow, talked at the Kenworthy, and so that was another partnership that we did with them. Then in October, we had the Finding the Center Human Rights Conference, Action-Oriented Human Rights Conference. That is every other year. We're going to be doing this large conference from now on. And so the Moscow Human Rights Commission is a member of and actually very active in the Northwest Coalition for Human Rights, who is now taking over the Finding the Center, and so we're going to be centering that. And our keynote speaker at that one was James Meredith, of the Civil Rights Movement. Some of you may be familiar with him and history lessons of him being shot on his march and so forth. And so he came in and did a talk, and it was interesting, wasn't it, Linda? Yeah. So he was an interesting man. He's a character, but it was a pretty good conference, and so we're hoping to continue doing this and get it to grow again. We used to do these in the past, but then we had a period with no funding, and they went away, and so we're hoping to get them back up and running again. In 2015, we also were up for the Ismat and Manan Sheikh Community Unity Award. Whoops, go back up there. And so we gave that award, and this time around, the award was given to Tom Hansen for his work with Moscow Cares of videotaping events, documenting everything going on in Moscow, donating money to various causes, all of these kinds of things, and so he was given the award this year. And it honors Ismat and Manan Sheikh, who really worked hard on community unity. They would have their annual Thanksgiving feast that they would invite everybody into, and so this award was created in order to honor them and then to honor people who were continuing the work of bringing the Moscow community together. We also participated, as usual, every year in the Martin Luther King Human Rights Breakfast, so we support that. The Latah County Human Rights Task Force puts it on, but we give them monetary support every year. And Alicia Garza of Black Lives Matters was our speaker at this one, and several of you were at this, and so you know what was going on at that particular one. It was a good turnout. They had a packed house, and so we're always happy to continue to support this. Now, this Social Justice Forum was scheduled in the spring for March. However, we had to end up canceling it because one of our speakers, we only had two speakers, and one of them was ill, so it kind of defeated the whole purpose of having two viewpoints as part of the talk when one of our viewpoints was ill. So it didn't work out. So we have rescheduled this, and it's going to be in September, and so I'll mention that again in a moment. We also did this Social Justice Forum on Gender Shaming and Sex Education with Natalie Greenfield speaking, and of Sex Shame Your Body, talking about abuse, sex education, and the need for it, and these types of things. And so this was a very interesting event. She's a fascinating speaker and very passionate about what she does. All right, so that was basically the year up to this point, because over the summer we really don't hold very many forums. We rarely do because lots of people are gone. Everybody's on vacation. The university's not around. The students are gone. So we tend not to do anything much in the summer except keep things going. But one thing we do in the summer, again, whoa, that's a nice typo. I'm not sure what's going on there. But we're going to be at the Pride Festival again coming up in August. And so we will have a booth there. We'll participate in the march as we usually do. So we do this every year, and we will continue to do it. And that should say 2016. I'm not quite sure where the 9 came from. We also will schedule again, and we're planning to have it in September. We're not sure of the exact date yet, but we'll be finalizing that at the next meeting tomorrow. And so it'd be the first week or by the second week at the latest in September, our Faith and Human Rights Social Justice Forum, in order to get that one happening again. We also have one in the works as an educational forum on faith healing in Idaho and the issues with faith healing in Idaho. And there was a editorial in the paper on Sunday in the Tribune, I believe it was, that on this issue, and laws on faith healing in Idaho and the number of children who have died in Idaho due to this issue. And so we're going to do an educational forum about the different issues involved, the different aspects of it as part of all of this. Human Rights Day at the Market is also coming up in September, and the Human Rights Commission does at least twice a year a presence at the farmers market where we set up a booth and for information. Well, the Human Rights Day at the Market is the task force usually does this, and they're still doing this, but they did not get a booth slot this year. There was a mix-up, and they didn't get one signed up, so we're sharing our spot with them and doing it together this year. And so that one will be coming up. It's in September at the market. We will continue to participate in the Northwest Coalition for Human Rights. We're trying to get it up and running again. It got off to a good start, but then we had an issue because most of our technical support and website and all of this was run through the diversity office at the University of Idaho, and Carmen Suarez had set that up. Well, she left. Things changed there. We are having a gap in communication, and so we are moving it out of that so that it's set up on its own, so that if one person leaves, it doesn't disrupt the whole thing again, and that's because that's what happened to us. And so the Human Rights Commission is still leading in keeping this coalition going. We will participate again in the MLK Human Rights Breakfast, and so we do that, as I said, every year, so we'll be doing that again. And so that's up through January at this point. Those other social justice forums will be in the fall. What we're doing in the spring, I don't know yet. So we'll be planning those as we progress. And so, questions?
Ken, wouldn't it be great if we could just get people to love each other?
Yeah,
and
it'd
follow the
simplify our
golden
job,
rules. Something
yes.
pretty easy, like treat me the way you would like to be treated, that sort of thing. That'd be kind of cool.
It
if we
would
could
simplify things.
My question has to do with the breakfast, the
Yes.
Martin Luther King, and it's always so packed.
Yes.
And I was just wondering, are there plans to change venue or?
That I couldn't answer to because the task force really runs the breakfast. We just give them
It's a good place for it.
support, money, and other support, but they're the ones that plan it and all that. And Joanne has already left, so she would be the one to ask since she's chair of the task force. I don't know. I mean, I know they do the junior high because they always have been. They get it for free. There's all these issues that are part of it. But you are correct. It is always full anymore.
Catherine, another part of it, too, is to get a bunch of those kids involved. And I think that's one of the big concerns about making sure it stays in a junior high because those middle school kids are really helpful, lots of them.
Yeah, and the high school kids participate. They have the contests in the public schools, and so they like being in the schools. So, but I could ask them if there are any plans to change venue just because of space-wise.
Kind of
I know
fun having a
it's a
packed
standing
space.
room only these days, and so it would be nice to have better seating, but I'm not sure if that's in the near future or not. So.
Well, let me ask the council. Other council members want questions for?
I just have to say I've attended the breakfast a couple times, and I especially enjoyed the singing we did a couple years back with Simba and the Exceptional Africans. It was great fun. It was really a nice pull it together kind of a moment. So it was
Yeah,
very
the
nice.
task force does a wonderful job.
Yeah, they
putting it
Singing's
definitely
great as
do.
long as I'm not one of them singing.
You were next to me. You
The
were
reason-
singing, Bill. I heard you.
Just the reason I brought it up is because I know that there's a lot of logistics that has to happen, and the task force does all the food. And so I was just wondering, because of all, there's just so much, and there's so many people, if there was another way to support them, because the event has grown. So it's
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, we give them monetary support. We help out volunteering, and I know a lot of others volunteer as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that if we could figure out a way to give them more support, they would love it. The task
Yeah.
force would love all the help they could get.
Right.
So, because it is gotten to be a huge event.
Yes.
So.
John, you're the liaison to human rights.
Yeah, unfortunately, I missed the last two meetings. I was in Boise at the
PIC.
cities meeting at the last one, Ken, and the time before that, I was sick.
That's
a
all
lot
right. I
of
missed the
people-
last meeting, too, because I was out of town. So.
Well, all right, we're even.
Linda,
But no, the task force, the committee, the human rights people, they discuss lots of issues. They discuss them thoroughly. They come up with a plan, and they follow through with their plans. And like Ken said, on the one issue, did real well on the first go-around, did not do so well on the second round. So they are also willing to admit when things don't go quite as well as they could. And when I first got on the human rights, I said, I don't know if I'm going to like this, but the next time around I said, I'll take human rights again. So I hope that you appreciate me as much as I appreciate you.
Of course, John.
Linda, Paul, you had something you want?
Yes, I just wanted to tell you.
Please. Yep. So the folks can see who's talking back there, Linda.
Gosh, you want it on the record here.
Yep.
I just wanted to tell you that the reason that we are so enamored of the junior high multipurpose room, or whatever we're calling it now, but anyway, we know how to do that, and it is like clockwork, and it is just a great site. The other thing is we operate on the age-old political principle, always plan your event for a slightly too small room, so that people will be there, and lots of people will be there, and they will feel absolutely terrific about being at such a successful event. And that's what's happened.
Thank you, Linda.
And the junior high does have lots of parking, so that makes it easy, too. So.
Well, Ken, thank you so very much for the wonderful work that you and your commission does. We all appreciate it very much here in the city. So thank you for that great report.
We have some good people on the
Yes, you do.
commission. So.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we will move on to item number 5. It's a public hearing, proposed amendment of Title 4, Chapter 6, to amend portable sign regulations. Michael Ray, you have the podium, sir. And as I said, this is a public hearing, or will be a public hearing.
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the council. So before you tonight, we have a proposed ordinance to amend the sign code, Moscow sign code, to provide greater flexibility in portable signs within the code. And this all originated with a letter from Brandon Mitchell. It's attached to your packet tonight that requested Planning and Zoning Commission take a look at a little more leniency with portable signs in town, specifically freestanding feather banner signs is what they're commonly referred to as. So just wanted to familiarize yourself with the types of signs. You may have seen them around town. You may have seen them in other communities, but mainly a new trend in signage probably happened about a little over 5 years ago. You've seen these spring up in cities across America. They come in a variety of sizes and shapes, but they're mainly of some type of feather vinyl material, and it flaps in the wind and gets attentions of passerby motorists. They come in a wide variety of sizes. As you can see, they range from the giant size, which can be all the way up to 17 feet tall, and go all the way down to about 6 feet in height as well, and come in a variety of different shapes and sizes. These are some of the ones you've seen around town. This was the vape shop. This was out by Pullman Road, Renaissance Mall. You also have Brandon's location, Jiffy Lube on Troy Highway. He was displaying a couple of these freestanding feather banners at his place of business, as well as the Dragonfly Car Wash, which is directly adjacent to Jiffy Lube there. As you can see, the three feather banners at the intersection. So Planning and Zoning received the letter, directed staff to take a look at how other jurisdictions handle these signs, which is similar to what we always do with code amendments. We had taken a look at Boise, Caldwell, Coeur d'Alene, Lewiston, Meridian, Missoula, Nampa, Pullman, Sandpoint, and Twin Falls. They typically refer to these as, like I mentioned before, banner signs. They usually vary in size, height, number allowed, as well as the duration from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Some of them prohibit them, like Sandpoint doesn't allow them in town, and some jurisdictions allow pretty much unregulated. Within our current sign code, these would really be classified as a temporary sign, and so they don't fit within our portable sign definitions, which is more oriented towards a sandwich board sign, limited in size to 3 feet in width and 4 feet in height. Temporary signs within the code are only allowed to be displayed at 2 15-day intervals, so they only get about a month every year to be displayed. The Commission ended up directing staff to look at including banner signs as an option under the portable sign regulations after we reviewed all these other jurisdictions and taken a look at how we currently regulate them within the code. And they directed staff to go within the general business and motor business zoning districts. So we allow portable signs in GB, MB, as well as downtown and central business zone. You may recall we expanded the allowance of mainly sandwich board signs out of the downtown area in about 2009, where they were prohibited in general business and motor business. And these are really the regulations we came up with at that time, allowing a maximum number to be more than one portable sign per each 100 square feet or 100 feet of lot frontage. At least one portable sign should be allowed in that circumstance where there's less than 100 feet of frontage. And then no more than 3 portable signs shall be permitted for any single lot frontage. And at the time, we had just defined the size, 3 feet wide by 4 feet in height. What we'd be doing here is drawing a distinction between sandwich board signs and these freestanding banner signs. So we'd have sandwich board signs, which we'd retain the current regulation of 3 feet by 4. We'd be inserting freestanding banner signs at a height maximum of 13 feet and 24 square feet in size, so they'd be limited to those restrictions. And then at the end, this is common across a lot of the other jurisdictions, that they have some type of language within their sign ordinance that states that portable signs that are tattered, torn, or in a state of disrepair are prohibited. And so this comes with anytime you have the fabric material that is constantly flapping in the wind, it has a tendency to really fray at the ends and become really a public nuisance. And so a lot of jurisdictions put this statement within their ordinance. And the Planning and Zoning Commission did conduct a public hearing after working through the ordinance. That happened on June 22nd, and they recommended approval of the ordinance as presented to City Council. Staff's recommendation before you tonight is to conduct a public hearing, and after considering any testimony, approve the ordinance under suspension of the rules, requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary. And I'd certainly be able to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for Mike before we open the public hearing? Walter?
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, in the matrix that you've done, they're called portable signs. Are they truly portable? I saw one that you had at Jiffy Lube, looked like it had a cross base sitting on concrete, but some of the others look like they go down in a sleeve in the ground or something. Are they truly portable?
They are portable. They're not really fixed to the ground. Some of them may be placed in the ground, but they're intended to be removed at the end of the business day. So that's the way we currently have the ordinance written, and that's the way it's proposed to remain. So they would have to take that down at the end of business and then put it up at the next day.
Walter?
Okay, and I saw that in the ordinance and wanted to question it, so the answer is yes, they are to be taken down.
Right.
Would you take a look at the proposed ordinance, section T1B, small b? It's on the first page, at the bottom of the first page of the ordinance.
Okay.
It's talking about permitted portable signs, and it says maximum size shall be 4 feet in height and 3 feet in width. Is that conflicting with what we're doing?
This would only be in central business and urban mixed commercial zoning districts. So we wouldn't be allowing these in downtown. So that was one.
So this is correct?
Yeah, this is correct. Yeah, that was one point of discussion with Planning and Zoning Commission, that they didn't want to see these downtown just because they're more oriented toward automobile traffic, whereas the sandwich board signs that are 3 feet by 4 feet are more intended for the pedestrian scale.
Okay, and last thing, you made the comment about them being across America. I think they're across the world. I saw one in some of the news footage of the disaster that occurred in Nice, France the other night. I actually backed the DVR back up and said, that looks like a banner sign. So they're everywhere. I don't know who invented them or thought of them, and maybe it's a fad, but they're here.
Well, in fact, what you're saying about a fad is something definitely that was addressed at the meeting, the planning and zoning meeting, about how for a while there's sandwich boards. Did you want to talk about kind of some of the thinking about the fad? Because that was definitely one of the things that people were worried about.
Yeah, I mean, these are a recent occurrence, and then in 2009, when we updated the sign code to allow sandwich board signs, you used to only see those in the downtown area, and then businesses started to want to display more advertising, and so that's why the council expanded it at that time to allow sandwich boards all over. But yeah, they're relatively recent occurrence, and it's just a reflection of a new trend in signage across the world, and we were just updating our code to reflect that trend.
Well, too, with the trend, remember they talked about, that's why they kept the lights, and because the banners could change. So you addressed whether or not the banners could have lighting, and remember there was talk about all that, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, they all recognized that they didn't want to see something that flashed, and which is similar to what our current restrictions are with portable signage. You don't want it to become a nuisance to the or a safety issue to an automobile and traffic on the adjacent roadway. So,
thanks.
Art?
Yeah, I was also happy to see that there remains the restriction on how many can be placed on a particular stretch of street frontage to minimize the cumulative impact. So I was glad to see that was retained.
Yeah, we really wouldn't be allowing any more signage. They would just give businesses the opportunity to choose what type of signage they would like, whether it be more of the sandwich board sign or this freestanding banner signs. So,
John?
You mentioned at the meeting with where you made your presentation, and I was confused because at the beginning you meant 2 weeks, a day off, and then 2 more weeks, and that takes care of the sign for the year. Is that correct?
Well, that's the way our current sign code is. So any sign that really doesn't meet any of the categories of signage underneath that code automatically falls into maybe a temporary sign, which doesn't have a restriction on the size of the sign or the type of the sign, but it does have a duration that it limits you to, and it's only for 2 15-day periods. And so people that want to, or businesses that want to display these signs right now, that's what the option that they currently have. But after that 2 15-day period, they have to take it down for the entire year. This would be going in and establishing these types of signs as portable signs underneath our current regulations, which would say that you can display it 365 days a year. It's just that you have to take it down at the end of the business day. And so it would be changing that for these types of signs.
Okay.
Okay.
I move that we...
Well, hang on. We got to have a public
Sorry.
hearing, dear.
Oh, sorry. Rushing it.
Oh, we're done talking with Mike, so I will now open the public hearing and would take testimony for those that are in favor of this. Seeing nobody rush to the podium, I would take any general or against commentary from those out in the public. please come up, state your name, address, and let us know your concerns.
David Pierce, 716 East F Street. Just a thought. What about anchorage for this? This thing is a sail, and the wind can catch that and tip it over. Is there anything, this is really directed to him, I didn't hear anything there. Maybe there's something already in the ordinance.
Section E, down there it says.
Okay. Yep. All right. It was just a thought.
Yep. Shall be suitably anchored, weighted, or just. Yep. Thank you, David. Others that would like to speak before I close the public hearing? Public hearing is closed at 7:50. Would the council like to proceed?
Yeah, I move that we accept the ordinance and read it by, approve the ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay, we got a motion by Catherine, a second by Art, to approve the ordinance and the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and it be read by title and published by summary. We all good on that? I'll start with you, Walter.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and that passes, and it is ordinance number 2016-08. Ordinance number 2016-08, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, Idaho, a municipal corporation of the State of Idaho, providing for the amendment of Moscow City Code Title 4, Chapter 6, the sign code to allow additional types of portable signs in general business and motor business zoning districts, providing that the provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, and providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from the date of its passage, approval, and publication according to law. So with that, we will move on to item number 6, which is sanitation lease agreement. Tim Davis, sir. Are you Tim?
Good evening. One of the changes made prior to implementing the single-stream curbside recycling program was the fact that glass would no longer be accepted at the curb. Glass is still accepted at Moscow Recycling, and as a convenience to Moscow residents, the City of Moscow established a second glass drop-off area located at the former Gilbert Auto parking lot on South Blaine and Highway 8 East. The city entered into a lease agreement with Spence Holdings, LLC, who owns the Gilbert Auto property, for access to a piece of that property approximately 50 feet by 50 feet, so we could place a 20 cubic yard roll-off container for a secondary glass deposit. The annual cost of that lease to the city is $3,600. When the City Council approved that initial lease agreement, they requested that staff bring the agreement back for renewal consideration and provide some statistics on usage, which I believe you have in your packet. I have a short recap there. This was also reviewed and recommended by Administrative Committee on July 11th for non-renewal based on lack of usage. In your packet, you have that recap, which shows that the vast majority of the folks that are depositing their glass are still taking it to the recycle center. We only accepted about 6% of the total tonnage in glass at the secondary glass container. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Walter?
Tim, did you tell me that the tonnage of glass is up since we went to single stream and people are not allowed to put it out at the curb anymore?
Yes, it's actually up by 11%, and I have no answer for why.
Jim, this was on the admin meeting on
Yeah, it
July
was
11th.
discussed at the admin, and we talked about how the location of the dumpster at Spence is not really very out in the open, and that may have something to do with the fact that people don't see it as they go by. If it was placed out by Highway 8 and it had a big banner on it, maybe more people would know about it. But the fact that only 6% of the glass is being collected there makes it seem like it's really not worth our while to do that. And people seem to be fine with taking it to the recycling center since the amount of tonnage is actually up since we stopped accepting it picking it up at the curb. So it would just seem like the best thing to do to abandon this project because it doesn't really have enough demand to make it worth the amount of money we're spending on it.
John?
I agree with you, Jim. And Spence Hardware has converted the old Ford dealership into a new Cub Cadet Steel franchise, and they are taking up a lot more space than was originally taken up, and they've added trailers and they've added any number of things, and what that's going to do essentially is squeeze out that container. That being the case, I'd make a motion that we don't renew the lease agreement between the City of Moscow and Spence Holdings, LLC.
I would second that.
Okay, Art?
One more small comment. I'm not against terminating the lease there because it's clearly being squeezed out and that chunk of land used for other purposes. But should we ever reestablish a secondary drop-off point for glass recycling, I think we should make a point of better identifying that as a spot to drop it off instead of a dumpster tucked away behind the building where nobody sees it at all. And we would have to make a better effort to let the public know that, yes, this is a place where you can deposit your glass. So in the future, I think it's something that we need to think about more in depth than we did the first time out as part of our learning process.
Mulder?
In the same vein as Art talking about, if ever, the container that's at Spence, the opening for the glass is chin high to an adult or higher, and to lift up a full green box, the old curb box full of mayonnaise jars, is something of an effort to not spill them back out on the pavement. The ones down at the recycle center are waist high, much easier to dump into, so just something to think about if we ever decide we really have to have one somewhere else.
Okay, well, we have a motion by John and a second by Jim to deny the renewal of lease agreement between the City of Moscow and Spence Hardware, LLC. And I'll start the roll with John.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that is denied, so that will save the city $3,600 and our taxpayers, so that's great. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7, Sojourners Alliance funding request. Gary Reeder, you have the podium, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. What you have before you is a request from Sojourners Alliance for assistance in their transitional housing program. This matter was before, Public Works Finance on June 27th. At that time, Steve Bonner, who's with us tonight, the Executive Director of Sojourners Alliance, approached the committee with a request for funding. Wasn't really a concrete request at that time. The committee wanted to have additional information so that the council had as complete a picture as possible regarding Sojourners' request. Assistant City Supervisor Jen Piffner and I and Mayor Lambert was there for part of the discussion, met with Steve Bonner, talked to him about the program, about the funding. As the council had indicated, committee indicated, they wanted additional information as to what programs Sojourners was involved with, what programs were continuing, and what programs were being threatened. So if you look, there is a memo that Jen authored based upon our interview with Steve and notes that we took at that time. I will leave Steve to talk about the particulars, but suffice it to say that there are two very separate programs as part of Sojourners. The transitional housing is one of the one that is being threatened at this time. Steve has a plan, and if you've read the memo, then you know what the outline of that plan is. The proposal tonight and the request, and there is part of the memo that is incorrect, and that is the calculation where it requests $15,000 of support from the City Council and $15,000 of support from Latah County. That request at Mr. Bonner's Direction is $12,500. Steve will tell you that Latah County has been supportive of their efforts and, at least preliminarily, is proposing something in that same amount, $12,500. Very worthwhile program. Sojourners has been around for a long time providing services to the community. As far as a funding source for this proposal, as you know, the council has never directly supported Sojourners Alliance, has in their operational funding. They have supported them in some of their capital projects. Repairs, waiving fees, those, but not personnel operations or costs of those operations. So should the council desire to assist, the recommendation that staff has placed in the request is an amount of money from the council's non-prioritized projects or legislative reserve, as it's commonly called. This is $25,000 that was allocated in the FY 2016 budget. That is intended for those things that come through during the year that the council had neither anticipated nor had budgeted for. So it's the council's discretionary fund. So there is sufficient funding in there. No funds have been expended from that $25,000 allocation, and the city staff awaits council's direction. And I'm sure you want to hear from Steve, who I saw come up behind me. So with that, I will turn it over to Steve Bonner.
Welcome, Steve.
Good evening, Mayor Lambert, City Council members. It's good to be back here. I learned a lot the last time I was in front of you, and I hope to have a better presentation for you with the facts that you've already seen. I've already received one commitment for a bed, and I'm kind of denoting it. Commitments are seeking people that are willing to step up and provide support. Once I have the commitments needed, then I would come back to the sources and then ask for those funds so that the funds aren't obligated until I have those commitments. So how I'm coining it is one commitment equals one bed. So if the city provides the $12,500, I'm perceiving that as funding 2 beds for a year. So I've already received one commitment from Health and Welfare and Mental Health. I'm seeking others as we are here today. But we also have a much greater role in this community that is unseen and beyond those papers. We have been instrumental in helping bring about the Family Promise program here into Moscow, as well as the Chaz Clinic. We were instrumental in that, along with several other people. There's some other agencies and programs that we're involved in that would be impacted by us if we're not here. In addition, I will be receiving about $30,000 in rapid rehousing homeless prevention funds in the fall if we're in operation. Those funds would be for families and veterans only. So we, as you all know, our services, but if you don't mind if I bring up one of my employees to give you about 3 minutes of an impact that we have on an organization that's directly impacting our citizens. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay. This is Daryl Kime, Program Director for Latah Recovery Center.
I think the microphone died. Is it working?
We can hear you, Daryl.
Well, good. You can hear me. Okay. That's really all that well, there it goes. That's really all that matters. So Steve's doing a great job telling you about Sojourners and their basic programs. But what he doesn't highlight and what hasn't been commonly known throughout the community is the incubation that they've done for other local nonprofits. Mine is, of course, a prime example. I work for the Latah Recovery Center, which is a branch of Sojourners Alliance. And what you need to know is the reason why the Recovery Center got located here is there's really 2 reasons. And I was working at the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare at the time, so I know exactly how it was decided where they were going to. They gave me a call and said, we want to place a recovery center, or at least try and place a recovery center somewhere in central Idaho, north central Idaho. So we talked about 3 possible locations. We looked at Orofino, Lewiston, and, of course, Moscow. We quickly took Orofino off the list. It's just a little bit too small. But we went back and forth quite a bit between Lewiston and Moscow because Lewiston is bigger. It's got a great deal of need for a recovery center. But we settled on Moscow for 2 very simple reasons. Number one, Moscow had Latah County Commissioner Tom Stroshine, who had seen the model we were following over in Connecticut, and he came back and he was very excited. The second reason, though, was Sojourners Alliance. Sojourners I don't know if you guys realize this, but I realized it as I worked at the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. It's highly unusual for a community the size of Moscow to have such a good organization as Sojourners Alliance working with the issues they work with. I can't think of another one in the state. And that became so clear to me as I worked at Health and Welfare, because every time I talked to somebody from throughout the state, they knew about Sojourners Alliance, this little nonprofit in Moscow, Idaho. I'd be talking to Boise, they know about it. I'd be talking about Idaho Falls, they knew about it. Steve's a leader. He's pretty quiet about that. He is the head of the, what is it, the Idaho Housing Commission? No, not Housing, Homelessness Commission. Board member now. He was at the head. He's well known. The organization is well respected. So that was the two reasons why we were able to land the Laytar Recovery Center for Moscow. And the support of Sojourners couldn't have been more important to us. I'm not going to go on because there's a lot of things for you guys to talk about. But we've analyzed what would happen if we didn't have Sojourners' support incubating us, as we've been terming it, and it would cost our budget approximately $25,000 to $30,000 more. That would be the difference between us being able to continue to function and not, most likely. We'd at the very least have to do a hell of a lot more fundraising, because that's about 20-25% of our budget that we save by being able to affiliate with Sojourners Alliance. So please do factor all that in, factor in how well known Sojourners is and how well respected, most importantly, they are throughout the state. They're a great thing for Moscow, and they do great things. Now, they incubate us, the Laytar Recovery Center. They also have been instrumental in starting, what was it, Family Promise? Family Together. Family Promise. I always get those two mixed up. They were instrumental in getting Family Promise started. They also work with, I think it's called the Palouse Education Consortium, that brings conferences every year, psychologically related, mental health related. And they're also incubating another recovery center, the one that got put in Lewiston, because remember I told you Lewiston was a strong competition for us. So year 2, Lewiston put out another attempt at doing that. And they also are incubating Lewiston in order to help them get started along the same lines as us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Darrell.
Thank you for listening to my former board president, actually. We also house Moscow Affordable Housing Trust in our office. We're in-kind donation. They use our office space and support staff, et cetera. So our role in our community is much broader and much more complex than just providing housing for the homeless. Though I see the need, and there's folks in the audience here that would attest to it, but just in being considered to support us this one time as a commitment towards our being able to provide services, I will be able to take that in hand to other businesses, organizations, city councils, et cetera, to say, I have our city and our county stepping up that want to support us. Can you help us as well? So that's about all I can babble on.
Questions for Steve? Walter?
Steve, I noticed in some of the data that was put together that you currently have one family unit that's unavailable due to extensive damage.
Correct.
Does your map forward take into account putting that back online, leaving it offline? What's the story?
The plan is to get that back online.
And the funds to do that?
Well, I actually, so we are going to be generating $1,000 a month from the Nespers Recovery Center for our oversight. And taking into consideration the extra funds that we get from, not a whole lot from the Laytar Recovery Center, that I believe that we would have the funds. See, the shortfall that I'm asking for, presenting to the community is $125,000, actually what would be close to what inflation would be from the original $100,000 10 years ago. And by having that, the goal of $125,000 does free up more money, so I could get that rehabbed, fixed up, and repaired, and have housing in that.
So it's part of your plan?
Yeah, exactly.
And if I may?
Yeah, go ahead, Wallace.
In the potential for reaching shortfall list that we've got where you're going to get all the other money to do this, you've got an item called probation proposed, parole on-site guaranteed beds. What is that cash? What is that? And you got $41,000 down.
So that has not come to fruition yet. What's behind that is that we typically, at any given time, about a quarter of our population are from probation and parole, as it is. And if they're housing folks with us, is to see if then they would support us. And they reached out to me originally about taking their folks into our housing program, fill up all of our beds. I'm not interested in filling all of our beds with that, but if my averages have been about a quarter of my population, I might as well see about tapping into those funds anyway.
So just to finish that, so up to date, you've taken their people, but not been paid for doing it.
Correct.
Under this proposal, you would take their people and be paid for doing it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Gina?
This might be a silly question, Steve, so hang with me. Okay. There is a closure planned from, looks like September to October 31st of this year?
Yes, we're calling it hibernation.
Hibernation.
Yes.
Okay, there's hibernation. What happens to the people involved?
There won't be any people on site. They all will be gone by then.
Okay.
And then the folks I have off-site in my housing program, because it's a housing first model, they reach out when they want help. And so I'll be coming in the office every 2 weeks to do payroll, et cetera, and also meet with those folks. But so we're going into hibernation, reducing our expenses, cost, et cetera, in hopes that we can line up more of the commitments. And then the goal is to reopen November 1st for full capacity again.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Walter. If no one has anything else at the moment, Mayor, I would make a motion that we approve a one-time funding commitment of $12,500 to Sojourners Alliance to be funded upon evidence that they have reached the difference between $125,000 and our $12,500.
Second.
And just to elaborate, that be in the form of a letter or whatever form you need with a gold seal if we have to prove to other potential donators that we're committed to doing it as soon as he can get the full package together.
Lori, did you get the contingencies that Walter put on the motion?
It wasn't really a contingency, it was just to make the point.
Well, no, it's a contingency. So did you get it the way he said it, or do you need it more clear? Pardon me? Does everybody understand that motion? Okay, I'll start with John.
Aye.
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 I want to thank you for putting the information together, and aye.
Aye.
Okay, there you have it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the support.
Okay. With that was our last item on the agenda. We will go into committee reports. Art, we'll start with you on the admin.
No, I'm
Actually,
Public Works and Finance.
You didn't have one. Let's go with Jim.
We just
Let's
had
start with
admin,
Jim then.
and we pretty much covered all the topics from the admin meeting last Monday on the consent agenda and the regular agenda. So I don't really have much to report, and I have no other. I've had no other commission meetings since then. So it's on to Gina, I guess.
Okay. Gina.
Wow. Okay, I attended my first meeting of both the PKC board and the Arts Commission. And the PKC is kind of still wrapping up the boot camp. Kind of the dust is finally settling there. And the Arts Commission is the kind of the same thing with Art Walk, wrapping that up and figuring out what happens from here, looking at the Arts Master Plan. So it was very informative.
Okay. John.
I've got a meeting tomorrow with the human rights people, and so I have nothing to report on that. And the only other thing I've got is that Steve mentioned the Choto for affordable housing, and we are making progress on our new construction on Morton Street, and things are moving along.
Okay.
That's what I have.
Arthur.
Yes, Sustainable Environment Commission meeting is coming up, as is the Fair and Affordable Housing Commission meeting. Other than that, last week we had a really nice groundbreaking for the airport. I was out there this morning delivering a friend for a flight, and those heavy moving equipment are moving. They are flying around, and I had a chat with Tony Bean while I was there, and he said to stay on schedule, they have to move 30,000 cubic yards of dirt a day to stay up with schedule, and those things are just booking. It's quite a sight out there, dust plumes rising and hills disappearing. It's pretty amazing. And that's what I had.
Okay, Catherine.
Hi. We had the 1912 Development Facilities Meeting, and they had the walkthrough in June, and so we had the field report from the architect, and we went. They did a whole list, just kind of punched through everything to see what was done. That was really good. And then we had the roof tour, so we went up onto the roof and surveyed that because it looks like they're gonna have a roof replacement action that needs to come in. And it was really good to walk the roof. Great view, but a lot of things need to be done. And the roof is out of time. It's way older than it should be, so it needs to be done. And then they are going to be hiring janitorial staff in-house. I think people are finding out that people that work in-house do a better job, and they hope to pay $15, which I thought was good. And then Jen reported about that Idaho Gives brought in $8,017 on May 5th, and so far raised in 2016 $94,000 plus. And they're still looking for window sponsors, and the 1912 sign didn't get a grant, so they're trying to figure out how to get that sign done. So they're working with the Heart of the Arts group to maybe kind of pull some more resources together for that.
Okay, Walter.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 11th, I attended the monthly fire department board meeting. Nothing unusual there. Attendance is down a little bit because of all the student residents that are not in sight at this time of the year. The remaining volunteers are doing a good job of making coverage of the calls. On Wednesday morning, the 13th, several of us attended the county-sponsored regional breakfast, which had a presentation by the Chaz Clinic. A lot of good information about the ins and outs of what it is and how it works and what their future holds when they move into the new Gritman building. The afternoon of the 13th, we had a Farmers Market Commission meeting. They are looking forward to reviewing their fee structure, taking a look at what they describe as an imbalance between what's charged the seasoned vendors and the walk-on vendors. It's quite a disparity, and they're trying to wrestle with figuring out what they want to be when they straighten that out, or if they do. And then I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Walter. Well, as Art had said on July 11th, of course, that was our budget workshop day as well for all of us, but that was the breaking of the ground for the airport. And that was pretty interesting to see when I came back from a trip to D.C., and I'll talk about that in a few moments, how the knobs that they've been able to skin off of that equipment. It's amazing where they've gone. But like you said, 30,000 yards a day is a lot. And it's a lot of dirt moving. July 13th through the 16th, I went back to Washington, D.C. with Mayor Glenn Johnson. We met with FAA officials as well as senators from both Washington and Idaho. Interestingly, on Friday when I was at Senator Crapo's office, he was here in Moscow at the same time that I was back there talking to all of his. So I told all of his interns and stuff that the senator had me come back to check on them, make sure they were doing stuff while he was back here in Moscow. They got kind of a kick out of it. But it was an interesting thing, and I was kind of intrigued by the senators from the senator that we met with, Senator Cantwell from Washington. I was very impressed with her information on airports and how they work and how they function. And we met with the FAA, and the whole idea was to make sure or try to secure landing for the ISL, which
ILS.
is ILS, instrument landing, whatever system. And the reason for this is they've changed it a little bit. They're going to a GPS, which is the next gen. But kind of interesting, and I'm finding this out more and more and more with the federal government. Not only does things move extremely slow, but there's going to be a new administration change, as we all know, in January. And I think those people are on status quo. So it's just kind of an interesting thing, different world for me. But anyway, that we seem like we made some things. At least we were there. The thing of it is if we weren't there, we wouldn't have been able to have a shot at what we were trying for. And then just as a reminder, this Wednesday, July 20th, we have a co-meeting with the council from Pullman at the 1912. So that'll be a fun night for us and get some good discussion points. And for those that have not met folks from Pullman, will be terrific. So I'm looking forward to that. Gary?
I think you have nothing.
Nothing. Wow.
Move to adjourn.
Okay. Okay, John moved, Walter second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned at 8:19, folks. Thank you very much.